I slid the envelope onto Evan's desk without a word. He didn't even look up. Just sat there sipping his overpriced protein coffee, eyes locked on whatever chart or model was glowing on his screen. Maybe he thought I'd wait for a moment of acknowledgement. I didn't. Behind me, Jenna's voice cut through the silence like nails on glass. Finally calling it quits took long enough. I didn't respond. Just stood there and let the weight of the room press against me. I used to train people like Evan. In fact, I trained Evan himself, back when he was fresh out of grad school, nervous and eager, shadowing me during late nights of decoding sequence conflicts and double-checking FDA tables. I taught him how to clean dirty data, how to spot anomalies before they became disasters. Back then, he used to call me the gold standard. Then Jenna came along. Raw talent, sure, but no patience. No tolerance for process. She preferred skipping documentation in favor of fast answers. She uploaded entire sample sets without peer review and called it efficient. When she messed up, Evan covered for her. When she missed a protocol check, he adjusted the logs and tagged my account instead. I watched them do it. Watched my name become a convenient scapegoat in late-night emails and Monday morning reports. And I said nothing, for months. Not because I was afraid, because I was calculating. A quiet exit is more powerful than a loud protest. They think silence means defeat. What it really means is they won't hear me coming when the consequences hit. Evan finally noticed the envelope and blinked down at it. What's this? I turned to leave. Effective Friday. Wait, you're quitting? I kept walking. Behind me, Jenna let out a fake laugh. Guess we'll finally be able to breathe around here. No more lectures on best practices. I didn't even give her the satisfaction of turning around. She didn't know I'd already documented the hidden shifts she covered for. She didn't know I kept backups of every correction I made on her behalf. Every spreadsheet I fixed after hours. Every time Evan had logged into the compliance terminal under my credentials. They thought they were pushing me out, but really I was stepping away, leaving them in a structure I knew couldn't stand without me. I reached the stairwell and paused, just for a second, hand on the rail. That lab used to be mine, not on paper, but in practice. I built the workflow models, I trained half the people on the floor. I negotiated vendor protocols and passed 3 FDA inspections that kept the lights on. And now I was walking away. Not because I lost, because I knew better than to keep playing a rigged game. I parked outside the Safeway on Cerrillos and didn't move for nearly 2 hours. The windows fogged slightly from my breath. The sun baked through the windshield, casting that weird yellow-orange glare across the dashboard, but I barely noticed. I just sat there, hands in my lap, eyes fixed on the glass doors sliding open and closed, people coming and going with carts and canvas bags and ordinary errands. This was the first still moment I'd had in, I don't even know how long. It's strange. You expect a big life shift, like quitting your job to feel dramatic, like some kind of emotional explosion or revelation, but it wasn't. It was quiet, flat almost, like watching a faucet drip in an empty room. I should have felt free, relieved. Instead, I just kept thinking about the first time I walked into that lab in Santa Fe 21 years ago. Back then, I was the second analyst hired. They hadn't even installed all the benches yet. I had to wear my own gloves the first month because the supply chain was a mess. But we made it work. I made it work. I designed the original conflict resolution framework they still use. Well, butchered versions of it now. My color-coded spreadsheets passed our first federal inspection without a single citation. We were small then, scrappy. We pulled 16-hour shifts, slept under desks, laughed over vending machine coffee. People trusted me. They came to me when data didn't make sense, when something smelled off in the PCR reports, when a file didn't reconcile with the metadata. I cleaned up so many near misses, they started calling me the insurance policy. But that kind of consistency, that kind of quiet competence, it doesn't make you friends in a place where everyone's fighting for title bumps and bonus nods. Eventually, I became a threat without even realizing it. I wasn't flashy. I didn't take credit. I didn't jump up in meetings and drop buzzwords like agility or innovation streams. I just got the work done, flawlessly. And for people like Evan and Jenna, that made me dangerous. They couldn't outpace me in quality. So instead, they chipped away at perception, blame her for the report delay, assign her name to the anomaly ticket, Tag her on the compliance ping. One email at a time, they turned me from asset to liability. I thought I'd feel broken. I didn't. I felt awake. Like I'd finally stopped trying to prove myself in a room where the rules were made to keep me small. Leaving wasn't losing. It was refusing to participate in a rigged reward system that punishes integrity and rewards speed over accuracy. A knock on my window startled me. A teenage boy in a grocery store vest gestured politely. "You okay, ma'am?" I smiled faintly and nodded. "Yeah, just thinking." He walked off, probably figuring I was some lost retiree killing time. Maybe I was, but I also knew something that Evan and Jenna didn't. That lab didn't run because of the structure. It ran because I knew where the cracks were and kept everything from leaking. And now, the cracks were theirs to deal with. I turned the ignition. The engine hummed. Let the silence teach them what my presence used to hide. The meeting invite came 2 days after I left. Exit summary review, attendance required. No explanation, just a block on my old calendar and a short email from HR forwarding it per CEO request. No signature from Evan. Of course not. He was probably too busy rearranging things to erase any trace of me. I almost didn't go. But something in me, it wasn't spite, more like precision, needed to see how they'd try to frame it. Needed to see how far they'd go. I wore my old lab badge, even though I was already removed from the system. Walked past security with a polite nod like I still belonged there. Maybe I did in a way. Not to them, but to the building itself. The layout, the rhythm, the unspoken rules. I built half of it. The conference room had been updated since I'd last sat there. Same table, just new chairs, and a sad little succulent in the center like that would make people forget it was the site of every disciplinary dressing down in the last 5 years. Aaron Mallory, the new CEO, was already seated. Mid-40s, crisp suit, too perfect part in his hair. He stood and shook my hand like he wasn't already aligned with the script they'd prepared. "Thanks for coming in, Marion," I nodded. Didn't realize I was required. He smiled, too polished, just tying up loose ends. Evan and Jenna sat across the table. Jenna's arms were crossed. Evan wore his usual half-frown, like someone had just explained a concept he didn't fully understand but felt the need to criticize anyway. Aaron opened a folder. "We've reviewed your transition documents and exit logs. There are discrepancies." "Of course there are," I said. Jenna jumped in, her voice tight but rehearsed. "Since Q3, we've seen a spike in unverified uploads and flagged data inconsistencies, all of which trace back to Marion's credentials. It's created delays in FDA correspondence." I watched her speak like she was reading from a cue card. Evan avoided my eyes, instead flipping through printouts like he was too busy to be bothered. Mallory added, "If these trends continue, they could jeopardize vendor relationships. This puts the company in a difficult position." I reached into my bag and laid a thin binder on the table. "You should read this." They hesitated. "I figured you'd try this, so I compiled a list of every midnight login, every sequence correction, every protocol Jenna skipped, all traced, all time-stamped, and all tied to my credentials, yes, but only because they were using them." Mallory raised an eyebrow. "Using them?" I nodded toward Evan. "He has admin access. It's in the audit logs, and Jenna accessed the terminal with my tag on at least 5 occasions that I documented. Sometimes while I was on approved leave," Jenna scoffed. "That's a serious accusation." "No," I said calmly. "It's a serious pattern, one I stopped covering for." Aaron scanned the top sheet. I watched the shift in his posture, the way his eyes flicked to Evan, then to Jenna, then down again. Evan finally spoke. "Look, no system's perfect. There's a learning curve." I cut in. "Number, there's a cover-up. And you were counting on me walking away quietly so you could blame the mess on the one person who was cleaning it up." Aaron closed the binder. "Marion, here's what I can offer. A severance extension, a neutral reference, and no formal investigation, if we consider this resolved today." I looked him dead in the eye. "You're not offering silence, you're offering surrender." "I'm offering closure." I stood. "Number, you're offering convenience, and I'm accepting, not because I'm defeated, but because I refuse to stay and legitimize the mess they created." Jenna glared. Evan said nothing. As I walked out, Mallory didn't stop me. He just stared down at the binder like it was ticking. Let it tick. let them all listen to the sound of their own fabrication unraveling. I didn't want a party. No sheet cake in the break room. No mass email wishing me the best on your next adventure. I wasn't going to pretend this was some amicable, sunny departure. Instead, I packed my boxes in silence the day after that exit meeting, drove past the lab without looking up, and spent the next 3 days making quiet stops. First was a little genetics startup near Agua Fria. I'd helped them back when they couldn't get a handle on cross-contamination protocols. Sat with the team after hours, taught them how to use templates no one else would give them. Now they were stable, growing. I knocked on the door, handed the director, Elena, a folded note with my new contact info and a hug. She started to ask questions, but I just shook my head. You'll figure it out. Then to a diagnostic firm on the north side, the one that nearly lost its license until I caught a formula error in their lab software. One that had been missed for 6 months. The founder, Marcus, wasn't in, so I left a letter. Same script. No drama, no blame, just facts and thanks. I didn't name Evan or Jenna or anyone else, but I knew the smart ones would read between the lines. My last visit was to a small analytics consultancy in Taos I'd once mentored out of a data integrity nightmare. They practically pulled me into a chair and tried to talk me into coming aboard. I told them not yet, not now. Soon, I promised, but not yet. Meanwhile, back at the lab, the fallout email had gone out, cold, corporate, and hilariously brief. Effective immediately, Marian Ortega is no longer with Biotronics. Please direct questions to Director Evan Parks or Jenna Lowell for lab continuity. No farewell, no thank you. Just a cut and paste exit. I heard from a few former colleagues, those who still had spines. Quiet texts, one-liners. Saw the email, unbelievable. You trained half the department. They should have named the floor after you. You okay? I didn't reply to most. Not because I wasn't grateful, I just didn't have the energy to be the calm, wise one anymore. On my last official day, I returned to the building at dusk, long after everyone was gone. Slid a small stack of handwritten cards into internal mail slots. 2 for junior techs I trusted, 1 for a quality control intern with real potential, and 1 for the vendor coordinator who always treated me like more than just a data mule. I didn't write about the sabotage, didn't warn them about Evan or Jenna. I just told them what I wish someone had told me early on. Protect your work, keep your logs, don't let anyone else define your competence. No goodbyes for Evan, nothing for Jenna. She wouldn't have read it anyway. When I stepped out of the building that final time, I didn't feel sad. I felt weightless, like I'd just dropped a backpack I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. No one followed me. No one called out. I wasn't walking away bitter. I was walking away whole, untethered. They thought they'd erased me. But you can't erase the person who built the foundation. They just hadn't figured that out yet. I let the first 3 calls go to voicemail. They came in rapid fire, unlisted number, then no caller ID, then one labeled Biotronics main office. I didn't need to answer to know who it was. I was sitting in the backyard, legs tucked under me on the old patio chair, pruning the lavender pots I'd neglected for months. The sky over Santa Fe was bruised with clouds, heavy and low, and for once, the quiet felt earned. The 4th time, I picked up. Hello? Marian? It was Aaron Mallory. I could hear the strain in his voice before he even got to the point. I'm sorry to bother you, but I was hoping we could talk for a minute. Just a minute. I didn't answer right away. Just let the pause stretch until he filled it. We're having some unexpected issues. His voice dropped, like someone might be listening in. A few vendors have pulled their testing slots. Our FDA liaison is pushing back on our last data package, and Jenna's running into walls trying to validate the latest gene sequence upload. She says the files aren't matching the review trail you set up. I didn't say anything. Evan's scrambling, he added, almost sheepishly. Of course he was. I leaned back in the chair and looked up at the sky. A single drop of rain hit my glasses. I documented everything, I said calmly. All the pipelines, all the protocols, the cross-check instructions, even the non-compliant uploads Jenna pushed under my credentials. They're all in the folder I left with HR. I saw them, Mallory said quickly. It's just, well, even with all of that, things aren't running. That's because I'm not running them, I said. Silence. He cleared his throat. I understand, I do, but would you consider consulting for us? Just briefly. Paid, of course. We just need a little guidance, just to stabilize things. I could picture him, pacing in his expensive office, rubbing his temples, wondering how the hell the lab was falling apart when the person they blamed for its inefficiencies was no longer around to hold them back. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You want me to come in and clean up after the same people who forced me out? There was a pause, then, yes, essentially. I almost laughed. Not out of bitterness, just at the pure, blinding predictability of it all. I didn't sabotage your lab, Aaron, I said, my voice level. I just stopped hiding the holes. I stopped patching things quietly, and now you're seeing what I saw every day for the last 2 years. He didn't respond. I could hear his breathing, steady and quiet. Finally, I said, maybe. I'll think about it. Another pause, then a hopeful, thank you, Marion. I ended the call without saying goodbye. The wind picked up and blew a scattering of dry leaves across the stone path. I leaned forward and wiped a smear of soil from my knee. Let them come apart. Let them fumble in the dark without the woman they tried to erase. If I do help, it'll be on my terms, and this time, I won't be patching leaks. I'll be watching what breaks next. I walked through the glass doors like a ghost returning to the scene of her own funeral. The receptionist's eyes went wide when she saw me, but she didn't say a word, just buzzed me through like muscle memory. The hallways smelled the same, sterile and overcooled, tinged faintly with ethanol and bureaucracy, but the place felt different, frantic. One junior tech I'd mentored sped past me with 2 binders and a look of panic. A data analyst sat in the corner conference room, red-faced and slumped over a laptop, muttering to herself. I passed Jenna's office. She was standing, arms flailing, face flushed. The door was open. She didn't see me right away. You can't just expect me to fix this overnight, she barked at someone on speaker. The index logs are corrupt, and the reference keys are pointing to blank entries. Marion's system was out of date anyway, so maybe we should just rebuild from scratch. I leaned against the doorframe. Funny, you didn't say that when you were using my system to pass inspection. Jenna turned so fast her phone tumbled from her hand and clattered across the desk. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just that twitch, guilt, caught mid-shift into anger. You have no right to be here, she snapped finally. Actually, said a voice behind her, I asked her to come. Mallory appeared in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, looking exhausted. He motioned for us to follow him. Private room. Now. We filed into a small glass-walled conference space. I took a seat at the far end. Jenna hovered near the corner like a cat about to bolt. Evan was already there, his tie undone, eyes dull, like someone had vacuumed the confidence right out of him. He looked up at me and said nothing. Mallory closed the door and stayed standing. Let's get one thing straight, he said, voice tight. I've reviewed everything Marion documented, the protocols, the login logs, the correction trails, her timestamp changes, and the gaps that began the minute she stopped showing up. Jenna crossed her arms. So this is a witch hunt now? No, I said evenly. This is accountability. You poisoned our reputation, she shot back. Vendors won't respond to me. Regulators are flagging our reports. You made us look... I didn't make you look incompetent, Jenna, I interrupted. You did that when you ignored basic peer review protocol and logged edits under my name at 11:47 p.m. from a proxy terminal. I just stopped protecting you. Evan finally looked at me. Why are you doing this? I laughed once, dry and low. Doing what? Holding a mirror? Mallory stepped in, rubbing his temples. Enough. I brought Marion in because we've lost control of the core data pipeline, and because, frankly, I was wrong to let things get this far. Jenna scoffed. Evan looked down. Mallory turned to me. I want to make this right. We need stability. Real stability. I'll give you full control of lab operations. Rebuild the data integrity systems your way. Hire who you want. Name your terms. I raised an eyebrow. Full control. He nodded. Why now? I asked. Because the people I put in charge failed, he said. And because the one person who held this place together walked away. And everything cracked. Jenna's jaw tightened. Evan said nothing. I stood slowly. I'll think about it, I said. But if I come back, I don't clean up other people's messes anymore. I build systems they're not allowed to break. Mallory nodded. Understood, and as I turned to leave, Jenna muttered under her breath, "You're not better than us." I paused in the doorway, looked back, and said softly, "Then why am I the only one being offered the power to start over?" And with that, I walked out. Let them sit with that silence. They called it a compliance review. That's how Mallory worded the email. Neutral, cold, corporate. But we both knew it was more than that. It was an audit, one I quietly helped initiate the week I handed over my folder and walked out. 2 weeks later, I sat across from him again, this time in the executive suite. No Jenna or Evan in sight, just Mallory and a thick binder with a black tab marked confidential. He slid it across the desk. "Internal findings," he said, his voice low and even. "We hired a third-party analyst, quietly." I opened the binder and scanned the first few pages. I didn't need to read far. It was all there. Access logs that showed Jenna logged into systems under my credentials 5 separate times, each after 10 p.m., always alone, always tied to problematic uploads. Email chains where Evan redirected blame to me on flagged reports, despite having been the one who greenlit them without peer review. Mallory had highlighted keywords. She missed the deadline again. Still waiting on Marion's cleanup. Except the logs showed I'd finished my part 3 days earlier. And then, the smoking gun. A private Slack exchange between Evan and Jenna. Evan. "She won't leave on her own, Jenna." "Then we make it uncomfortable." Evan. "Phase her out. Slowly." Jenna. "She'll fold. Old school types always do." Evan. "She's good at the job. Just not good for us." The blood in my ears went still. Mallory cleared his throat. "We also discovered Jenna submitted protocol edits using your login before she even had clearance. She pulled that access through Evan's override. IT confirmed it?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "Twice." I closed the binder. There was a long silence before I said, "You ready to act on it?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes." He buzzed his assistant. "Bring them in." A moment later, the door opened, and in walked Evan and Jenna. She looked sharp as ever, blouse crisp, jaw set. Evan looked pale, sweaty, his tie askew. They froze when they saw me sitting there. Mallory stood. "We've concluded our investigation," he said, "and based on the findings, both of your contracts are being terminated effective immediately." Jenna's mouth fell open. "You can't be serious." "I've already contacted HR. You'll be escorted out today," Evan sputtered. "Wait, we didn't, Don't insult me," Mallory cut in. "The audit is bulletproof, and the messages. You wrote them." "I was venting," Jenna shouted. "People talk. That doesn't mean—" "You falsified access logs," Mallory said, his voice ice. "You violated compliance. You used another employee's credentials to bypass peer review. And you both engineered a campaign to drive out the person who was keeping this lab from imploding." Evan's face went ghost white. He turned to me. "You could have come to me." "I did," I said flatly. 4 times. "You forwarded my concerns to Jenna and told me to focus on deliverables." Jenna stepped forward. "This is personal. She wants payback." "No," I said, standing. "This is math, and math doesn't care about your feelings." Mallory gestured to the door. 2 HR reps stood waiting. One held a sealed envelope, the other a cardboard box. "This isn't over," Jenna hissed as she passed me. "It is," I replied. "You just don't know how to lose." Evan didn't even look at me as he walked out, clutching his box like a life raft. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just stood there and let it land. Truth doesn't need drama, it just needs a paper trail. And I had all of it. I didn't come back as an employee. That was the deal. Mallory asked me to consult. Short-term, high autonomy, no internal reporting structure. I agreed on one condition. I'd say what needed to be said, whether or not he liked hearing it. And I meant it. The first report I submitted wasn't technical, it was historical. A quiet bomb dropped into a shared folder, labeled simply, Systemic Displacement, Patterns in Attrition and Compliance Voids, 2018 to 2024. 17 pages, tightly written, no rage, just names, dates, incidents, HR records, and one devastating conclusion. Evan and Jenna hadn't just forced me out. They'd quietly pushed out at least 5 other women in senior roles, all of them analysts, all of them experienced. All of them systematically erased, rewritten, or blamed for failures they didn't cause. The pattern was so clear, it practically screamed. Mallory read it that night. He didn't wait until Monday. I know because he called at 10:42 p.m. His voice quiet, shaken. How did this happen under my nose? You were busy looking forward, I said. They were busy rewriting the past. He didn't argue. A week later, he brought in a third-party ethics consultant, not to patch PR, but to comb through every department, anonymous interviews, HR audits, vendor calls. It wasn't just rot in one corner of the lab. It was creeping, quiet, cultural. Mallory called a staff meeting, a real one, not the kind with donuts and buzzwords. He stood up and said the words I never thought I'd hear. We failed good people. We let power protect itself. That ends now. He looked at me, sitting in the back, and nodded once. He didn't name me. He didn't need to. I heard later that Evan's job applications were going nowhere. Word had spread faster than he expected. People didn't want to touch data teams with ghosted audit trails and history like his. Jenna had 3 interviews lined up, but all fell through. One firm cited integrity alignment concerns. Another simply ghosted her after requesting writing samples. She started a LinkedIn post about being misunderstood, then deleted it hours later, and then the email. It came on a Wednesday afternoon. No subject line, just her name. From Jenna Lowell to Marian Ortega. Body, I know you probably won't read this, but I had to try. I made mistakes. I was scared, and I took shortcuts. And I blamed people I shouldn't have. I'm not asking for anything. But I'm sorry. Then one line, separate from the rest. Would you ever consider putting in a word for me? Even just a referral? I stared at it for a long time. Not out of anger, just quiet disbelief. Even an apology, she couldn't help but reach for a rope. I replied with only 5 words. You made your choices. Marian. I didn't send it to be cruel. I sent it because I meant it. Some people needed noise to feel important. I never did. My silence wasn't absence. It was clarity. A week later, Mallory brought in a new QA manager, someone I recommended, a former colleague from my early years, a woman with quiet fire and no tolerance for shortcuts. I met her for lunch the day she started and handed her a small binder. Workflow notes, escalation contacts, legacy passwords. Why me, she asked. Because you won't bend for convenience, I said. And because they'll underestimate you, she smiled. Until it's too late. Exactly. As I left the building for the last time, not quitting, just done, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not victorious, not vindicated, just finished. They didn't need my defense anymore. The facts stood without me. And Jenna? She finally knew what it felt like to be held accountable in a world she thought she could control. No shouting, no public takedown. Just doors that no longer opened when she knocked, and one that never would again. Mallory called one last time, 2 weeks after the cleanup. He asked me to take the director role. Full autonomy, carte blanche on hiring, policy overhaul, complete authority over data operations and compliance. Build it your way, he said. No interference. It should have felt like vindication, like arriving at the place I'd been working toward for 20 years. But it didn't. I thanked him, then I said no. He didn't argue, just exhaled and said, I had a feeling you would. That was the thing about power offered too late. It wasn't really a gift. It was just a patch over the damage they let happen. And I didn't want to spend the next 5 years fixing someone else's broken house. So I went to Taos. It started with one call to Marcus, the founder of the diagnostic consultancy I'd once mentored out of a mess. He offered me a desk before I even finished my sentence. The office was small, 2 rooms and a kitchenette, but it faced the mountains, and the only sound I could hear during the day was the hum of computers and someone occasionally cursing at bad Excel formulas. My kind of place. We weren't saving the world, but we were helping early-stage labs figure out how not to get buried by bad practices, helping them build right from day one, instead of scrambling later to untangle the mess. It felt honest. I wasn't anyone's supervisor. I didn't manage a team. I didn't approve PTO or sit in budget meetings arguing over why QA needed another intern. I just solved problems. And for the first time in decades, my days were mine again. No politics, No deflection, no performative leadership memos sent at midnight for effect. Just work. Good work. On weekends, I'd take long walks through the foothills and scribble in a notebook ideas for something that had been sitting quietly in the back of my mind for years. A place of my own. Not a lab, not a tech startup. An agency. Small, selective. Built on trust. Ortega Integrity Advisory. Not flashy, but solid. It wouldn't be big, maybe 5 to 10 clients max. I'd train junior analysts in proper data ethics. Help labs avoid regulatory traps. Step in before things got toxic. It wouldn't make headlines, but it would make a difference. I mentioned the idea to Marcus one evening as we packed up for the day. He grinned. "You've been waiting to build something no one can ruin, haven't you?" I nodded. He leaned against the doorframe. "You'll do it. And when you do, send me your rates. I'll be your first client." That night, I stayed up sketching the logo. Just a circle. Clean, balanced. Nothing inside it but my name. No flashy mission statement. No jargon. Just one line on the homepage. "We fix what others cover up." The next morning, I bought the domain. I didn't tell anyone else. Not yet. Because this wasn't about proving anything to anyone anymore. Not Mallory, not Jenna, not the industry. This was for me. After decades of playing defense, I was finally building something on my terms, with no one above me waiting to erase my name the second I became inconvenient. No more patching walls. No more hiding in the foundation. No more being the quiet one who kept it all running while others took the credit. The storm was behind me now, and ahead, clean air, a blank map, and my name on the door. The messages come in, but they're different now. Not frantic pings from Jenna or Evan. Not corporate jargon from Mallory. These are real voices, familiar, steady. Lab directors asking for input on compliance frameworks. Startups inquiring about audits. Former interns looking for career advice. My consulting calendar fills quickly. 2 labs in Albuquerque, 1 up in Durango. A biotech co-op in Portland flew me out just to spend the afternoon walking through their audit logs. They gave me a notebook with my name embossed in gold on the cover. I left it blank. I didn't need the applause. I already knew what I'd built. My house is quiet again. Not the silence of being dismissed or ignored, but the peace of not having to prove anything anymore. In the mornings, I tend the garden. The lavender's coming in stronger than ever. I moved the basil to the shadier side of the fence and put in tomatoes along the edge. Simple things that grow if you treat them right. No drama, no sabotage. Sometimes I sit on the patio with my tea and sketch route maps. I like seeing the lines connect cities, watching the clusters of clients grow in places I once passed through without stopping. I'm not chasing anything now, just choosing. One evening, my phone buzzes. Evan. I stare at the name for a moment, not because I'm tempted, just because it doesn't mean anything anymore. I swipe left and delete the voicemail before listening. Whatever it was, it didn't matter. He had 5 years to ask me the right questions. He chose shortcuts instead. Now he can live with the silence. Jenna sent an email last month. No subject line. Just a 2-sentence update about looking for new opportunities. No apology this time. Just floating words, waiting for acknowledgement. I didn't reply. Sometimes the absence of a response is its own kind of justice. Marcus tells me people are starting to refer to me as the fixer, which makes me laugh. I don't fix people. I fix systems. Quietly, thoroughly, and without needing credit. He says that's what makes me rare. But I think it's just what happens when you stop trying to belong in rooms that were never built for you and start building your own instead. There's no ceremony to this new life. No finish line or big speech. Just one day after another, filled with the kind of work I believe in. Surrounded by people who ask for help without pretending they already know everything. That's enough. One afternoon, I stand in my garden, dirt under my nails, sun warming my back, and realize something simple and profound. I don't miss the lab. I don't miss the politics. I don't even miss the title. What I have now is mine, not handed down, not borrowed, not at the mercy of anyone's ambition but my own. No spotlight, no applause, just peace. And honestly, that's better.